Tiṭṭhaṃ caraṃ nisinno sayāno yāvatāssa vitamiddho Etaṃ satiṃ adhiṭṭheyya brahmaṃ Etaṃ vihāraṃ. Whether one is standing, walking, sitting, or lying down, one should be free of sluggishness, free of sloth and torpor. One should keep this in mind. They say this is a divine way of life here in this world. So really the best way to understand this first line is, as always, we should look for the main verb. And it is here it's contained in these two words that have been run together, yāvatāssa. And this really breaks apart into yāvatāssa and assa. Assa we've met up with already in this sutta, the third person optative from ati. I should say third person singular, meaning one should be. Going way back to the first verse, the same one should. At this point, there's really a fork in the road. We have some options. So we could look right here at vitamiddho. And this is a Kamadaria compound. It's actually, Duroisel says that Kamadarias are divided into 9 classes. And I think this is the 9th that he lists, which is that there's a prefix joined to an adjective, basically. You might think that this would be vitamiddho, but it is actually, in fact, vitamiddho. Middho is one of these 5 hindrances, the nivaranani, and it's torpor, stupidity, sluggishness, so on and so forth. And vita is to be free from. Or maybe we could even say without. So one should be without this sluggishness. We shouldn't be lazy. Seems like we hear Zen masters say that a whole lot. Like, don't live your life in vain. We have this time right now. Make it happen. So we should be free from this hindrance of sluggishness and being lazy and kind of contented. The reason there's a fork in the road is this is one adjective describing the person, the subject of assa. But if we go way back to the beginning here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 words also describing this person. And these are all participles here up to and including sayāno. Now, a participle is a verbal adjective. So it's an adjective, but it has a verbal quality to it. And so, for instance, this first participle, present active participle, Tiṭṭhaṃ, is from tiṭṭhati, to stand. This is one of the forms of the participle that we'll encounter. This is actually nominative masculine singular. So because it's an adjective, it's going to decline like other adjectives. And it's nominative because it's agreeing with the unspecified subject of assa. So if we specified the subject of assa, it would be in the nominative case. And so these participles are all in the nominative case, nominative masculine, to be more precise. As I said, there is a longer form of the present active participle. I believe it would be tiṭṭhaṃ. And you have to be careful with that one because it can look very similar to the genitive and dative, which would lack an N. But here, the tiṭṭhaṃ is nominative masculine singular from the verb tiṭṭhati, so it means standing. This next participle, caraṃ, is from charati, to walk. So here it simply means walking. This is actually related to the word charya that you find in brahmacharya, where they've taken this idea of walking and extended it to way of living one's life. Specifically with brahmacharya, a holy life, leading a holy life. Now our next participle is actually a past participle, nisinno, from nesidati, to sit down. Probably past participle because while you could remain seated, it's something that you've had to do in the past. You had to sit down in the past. So this, and notice now here we have an O at the end. This is kind of like our standard declension. So this is clearly masculine nominative singular. We have the word va, and notice in the variant readings it's va. Va is what we would expect. Va, I think, is just shortened for metrical purposes. And then we have sayāno, another past participle from sati or sayati, to lie down. And I believe this one is like a middle form, but nonetheless a nominative masculine singular participle, lying down. And then we have this word which really belongs in front of all of these participles. But even if we didn't have this word, these participles would still function like this. Here, this yāvatāssa is being very explicit, and it has this meaning of as far as compared to regarding. This is qualifying one should be free of sluggishness as one stands, walks, sits, or lies down. And a slightly looser translation or sort of interpretation would be something like one should be free of sluggishness while one is standing, walking, sitting, or lying down. Now in the next line we have two clauses, to gata, and the main verb in the first one is adhiṭṭheyya. Now this is the third person singular optative, the longer form optative from adhiṭṭhati, and that means to concentrate or fix one's attention on, and it takes the accusative. We have the accusative case here also, so one should fix one's attention on, and then we have Etaṃ satiṃ. Etaṃ is our demonstrative pronoun, and it's going with satiṃ. Now sati is a feminine noun. Satiṃ is the accusative singular, feminine accusative singular, and so Etaṃ is also in the same case and same gender. Now Etaṃ could be by itself, we wouldn't know if it's masculine or nominative, but in this situation, it is feminine accusative singular. Sati, of course, we'll know from sama sati, the seventh of the path factors in the Noble Eightfold Path, right mindfulness. But that's a very technical usage of that word. Sati has to do with, in a more general sense, has to do with memory and recollection. So maybe we could even say recognition, or think of this as one should keep this recognition, one should focus one's concentration on this recognition. Now this recognition that's being talked about, I think, is the entirety of this sutta, the entire content from verse 1 up until here. I should also say that to make this a little more idiomatic in English, we might just say one should keep this in mind. That's freer, but that is, I think, that does no injustice to the thought being expressed. And then our final clause, our final gata, brahmaṃ etaṃ vihāraṃ idam ahu. Ahu is actually the verb, the main verb here. It's a perfect verb, the third person plural perfect from aha, to say. I don't know if it's the only perfect out there floating around, running around, but I don't think there are many of them. So this one, you see it a few times, you'll start to recognize it. They say, and since it's perfect, you might translate that as they have said. It's kind of like the wise have declared, they've said this, but in a more general sense, they've said it and they would still continue to say it into the present. So we might just say, they say, and then we have a lot of words run together here. Notice we have brahmaṃ etaṃ. So we can look at this demonstrative pronoun again. They say this, etaṃ, and now we're going to have to insert a form of the verb to be. So we'll just say is, hoti, and let's look at this word vihāraṃ. This comes from the verb viharati, to live one's life. And so this is like a way of living life, a condition of life. And of course, it's come to mean a more specific way or place of living, as in a Buddhist monastery, a vihara. But here, we're talking about a way of life. This is a way of life. And it should mention vihāraṃ. If we didn't have these words all run together, this would be vihāraṃ. So it would also be agreeing with Etaṃ, which I think we would have to take as neuter. I should have said that a minute ago as well. Sorry about that. This is a way of living, a mode of life. And then it's qualified here with an adjective, brahmaṃ. Again, if this were separated, we would find brahmaṃ. Now, this is an adjective that's come from the name Brahma, the highest kind of supreme God. So as an adjective, we could take it to mean something like Brahmic. We could keep that name, or we could simply translate it as divine. Putting all of this together so far, they say this is a divine way of life. And then we're left with idha. Idha means now, or in this present world, in this present condition. They say this is a divine way of living life here and now. Don't have to wait to die and pass into the Brahma Loka. This is a divine way of living. And again, what is this? The content of this sutta. And just to be very clear, brahmaṃ is an adjective. It would be a neuter, nominative, singular adjective, agreeing with Etaṃ and vihāraṃ. But notice after idha, we have another M. This M, not called M in Pali, in English, this M has only been inserted for euphonic purposes, if I can say it that way. This M gets inserted in certain situations like this just for ease of pronunciation. And we can be confident in that declaration because idha is an indeclinable and it doesn't change its endings like these other words did. One final note, this Brahma Vihara, this becomes a technical word in Buddhism describing these four states of metta, karuna, mudita, and upekkha, or in English, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity.